Last month, a Chinese company posted a download link with no press event and no pricing page. Just a zip file. The company is Origin Quantum Computing. The file is called Pilot OS 4.0, and Origin describes it as the world's first quantum operating system capable of orchestrating superconducting, trapped ion, and neutral atom hardware within a single software stack. The instruments this software claims to run cost tens of millions of dollars each. The software costs nothing. Free is not the opposite of strategic. Free is sometimes the most aggressive price you can name. What follows is the story of why a country that reportedly trails on raw qubit counts decided to give away the software layer sitting above those qubits, and why that move rhymes with a pattern that reshaped the technology industry once before. The callback word is layer. Remember it. To understand what Origin actually released, it helps to feel the physical gap between the hardware types it claims to unify. A superconducting qubit processor must operate at roughly 15 thousandths of a degree above absolute zero, the coldest temperature the universe permits outside a physics laboratory. Trapped ion hardware floats individual atoms in electromagnetic cages at room temperature. Neutral atom systems arrange atoms in optical lattices using laser beams finer than a human hair. These are not variations on a theme. They are completely different physical regimes obeying different engineering constraints. Origin's claim, and it is their claim alone with no independent peer review, published as of this writing, is that one software layer speaks to all three simultaneously. That is not a minor compatibility patch. It is closer to building a universal translator that lets a French speaker, a Mandarin speaker, and an Arabic speaker give instructions to the same machine at the same time, except each language here obeys entirely different physics. The release requires no purchase, no enterprise license, no cloud subscription. Anyone can download it. That fact is verifiable from Origin's own public announcement. Giving away the operating system sounds, on first hearing, like an academic gesture or a publicity move. It is worth pressing on what Origin actually gets from zero revenue on this product, because the answer is not nothing. IBM's Quantum Software Toolkit is open source but tightly coupled to IBM hardware and IBM's cloud access, as documented in IBM's own ecosystem materials. Google's quantum framework is similarly hardware adjacent. Both assume you are building toward their backends. A hardware-agnostic operating system, if it achieves real adoption, means that researchers build workflows that are not implicitly IBM workflows or Google workflows. They are just workflows. And in nascent technology ecosystems, the software standard that gets into labs first tends to stay there, not because it is the best option forever, but because people build on top of it, and the cost of switching climbs with every line of code they write. The analogy that makes this concrete: giving away the operating system is the same move a lock manufacturer would make if it gave away its key-cutting machine to every locksmith in the world. You are not selling keys anymore. You are setting the shape that every future key has to match. That is the first layer of the story. The harder question sits underneath it. My read is that Origin does not need Pilot OS 4.0 to be the finest quantum operating system ever engineered. It needs it to be the first one that becomes a habit. The model here is Linux, not because Linux was the most elegant kernel ever written, but because it got into servers, and then into phones, and then into everything else, before anyone paused to evaluate whether it was the best option. Origin is betting that quantum researchers, especially those at universities and cash-constrained labs, will build their workflows on whatever is free and available today, and that switching costs will do the rest. Habits compound. Infrastructure calcifies. The reason a Chinese company is making this specific move now connects directly to what it cannot do. United States export controls documented across multiple policy rounds between 2022 and 2024 have restricted China's access to leading-edge classical chips, extreme ultraviolet lithography tools, and advanced packaging equipment. Quantum hardware involves different bottlenecks, including dilution refrigerators, ion trap fabrication, and precision laser systems. And reports suggest export control coverage of quantum-specific hardware is less comprehensive than classical semiconductors as of mid-2025, though that gap appears to be closing. China's publicly reported superconducting qubit figures come largely from state media and company announcements and are less independently verified than IBM's public roadmap numbers, which show IBM advancing on its own published timelines. The picture that emerges is a country that faces a meaningful hardware ceiling and knows it. The restriction was not a ceiling, it was a redirect. The wall did not stop Origin, it pointed the company at the one room that was not yet locked. The software layer above the qubits was, until recently, unclaimed as a standalone standard. IBM owned it by default because IBM owned the hardware beneath it. No one had thought to occupy it independently because no one had a strong incentive to. Origin had the incentive. Imagine a country that cannot yet build the fastest engine in a race. Instead of out-engineering the engine, it writes the dashboard software that every driver in the race has to use. The engines still matter, but now every driver's muscle memory belongs to you. IBM's quantum position is built on full-stack ownership, hardware, software runtime, and cloud access bundled together, as reflected in IBM's own public positioning. That bundle is a hotel that owns the building, the restaurant, the gym, and the booking application. Origin just released a rival booking application, free, that claims to work with any hotel. The building still matters enormously, but if the customer's loyalty migrates to the booking layer, the building's premium compresses. IBM lived through a version of this dynamic before. The separation of hardware and operating system in the personal computer era eroded IBM's hardware margin in ways the company did not fully anticipate. There is no documented evidence IBM views Pilot OS 4.0 specifically as a threat. This is analyst-level inference, not a recorded IBM response. But the structural parallel is not invented. IBM's quantum processors are physically small, a chip you could cover with a thumbnail, surrounded by dilution refrigerators and electromagnetic shielding that fill a room the size of a walk-in closet. Origin is not touching that room. It is sitting above it at the software layer, which runs on a laptop. Before I tell you what I actually conclude, I want to slow down and name the 3 strongest reasons this story might be smaller than it looks. First, claim versus proof. Pilot OS 4.0's cross-hardware orchestration is Origin's own description. No independent benchmark has run it across heterogeneous quantum hardware at meaningful scale and published results. A free download that does not yet do what it says changes the strategic picture significantly. Reports suggest early users exist, but third-party validation is absent as of this writing. Second, adoption has not happened yet. Software standards only become standards when people build on them. Linux succeeded because it got into production systems and stayed. Pilot OS 4.0 needs researchers outside China to adopt it, build on it, and resist switching. That loop has not visibly started, and if it has, no independent data on its scale is public. Third, the abstraction may cost too much. Quantum hardware is fragile, physics-specific, and tightly coupled to its own control electronics. A unified operating system layer that smooths over the differences between superconducting and trapped ion and neutral atom hardware may impose a performance penalty that serious researchers simply refuse to accept. The generality that makes the operating system appealing may make it too slow for the experiments that matter. All 3 of these land. And yet a move can be strategically legible and technically immature at the same time. The question is not whether Pilot OS 4.0 is finished. It is whether Origin's framework for the software layer, if it matures, changes who sets the interface standard. That question is genuinely open, and open questions in nascent industries tend to resolve in favor of whoever arrived earliest, with something that worked well enough. The layer is the leverage. Interface standards in technology ecosystems accrue to whoever establishes them early and makes switching painful. Quantum computing is currently pre-standard, no dominant operating system, no universal hardware interface, no agreed abstraction layer. Origin's move is to occupy that layer before it fossilizes around an American incumbent's default choices. If that succeeds, foreign quantum hardware vendors would face a choice. Build natively for Pilot OS compatibility, or explain to customers why they don't. Whoever writes the electrical socket standard does not manufacture every appliance. They just ensure that every appliance has to speak their language to turn on. The layer is what the export controls forgot to lock. Here is what I actually believe. IBM's quantum moat has always rested on the assumption that serious quantum work requires IBM hardware, IBM software, and IBM cloud access bundled together. Origin just put a crowbar in the bundle. Whether the crowbar is strong enough is a separate question from whether the strategy is real. The strategy is real. China could not race IBM on qubit count, so it declined that race and moved to claim the software layer that qubit counts will eventually have to answer to. The restriction became a redirect, the wall became a map. And the map led here, a free download that may not yet work at scale but already names the territory. Origin's pilot OS 4.0 may be unfinished, it may be overstated, but it exists, it costs nothing, and it is sitting above the hardware that every quantum lab in the world is currently buying. That is a position IBM does not yet hold. The most dangerous gift is the one that makes you dependent before you notice you have accepted it. Do you think the software layer in quantum computing will matter as much as it did in classical computing? Or is quantum hardware too physics-specific for a general operating system to ever take hold? I want to know exactly where you would push back on this. If this kind of analysis is what you are here for, subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel covers the moves that do not make the front page until it is too late to be surprised by them.